Hi, how are you doing? Welcome to the Empathy Explorers podcast, the place where you'll find conversations with people that pursue their passion. They share the blueprint to their journey, dive deeply into the habits and goals the fellow explorers share with us. So start packing and make sure you are ready for the journey. Hi, Helena. Thank you for being a guest on this show.
And thank you for inviting me, Ruud.
Yeah, I saw a lot of people sharing your stories on Instagram, and that's what got me fascinated about you. And I started following you, and we had a lot of great conversations, I think.
Yeah,
But for the people that don't know who you are, can you give a bit of an introduction?
yeah, of course. So for everyone that's listening and that don't know me, I'm Helena. I run Instagram account called UX that is a collection of carousels that talk about some best design practices, especially for the UI Daily Challenge. So you can find some information, what are the best practices, for example, for the sign-up process, for the checkout process, and other interesting things, also for material design. And I'm 24 years old and I have a background in IT, and since last year I started focusing on becoming a UI UX designer, and that was the main thing why I started this Instagram account. Uh, so I started it to help me to learn something and to share it with others. So yeah.
That's a great introduction and a lot of things that I wanted to dive deeper in. So that's a great introduction for yourself.
Sorry if I said too much already.
No. That's okay. Uh,
Okay.
so were you always interested in IT?
Yeah. I was just thinking about it. Like, how did it all start? So, not so much in IT, but more in visual expression, let's say, and combining those two. Like, for example, I remember when we got our first computer at home, like back in 2000 or something. I used to love go and just paint in Microsoft Paint, I could spend hours and hours doing that.
Yeah,
And
that's so cool. I also did that in Paint. Try to
yeah,
make certain paintings for
yeah,
yourself. Really cool.
yeah, I think that is how most of us designers started. Yeah.
Did you
Um,
did you also share the things you made?
I mean, I just uh, shared it with my family, and like every 10 minutes was, oh mom, come and see what I painted now, and she was like, ah, yeah, nice, but it wasn't so nice, but it was very fun for me.
Yeah.
And just later on when I was in secondary school, I had a blog, and I used to love adjusting it, like the theme of it, playing with HTML on it, and just adding pictures and making it pretty. And just in general, I always love to draw and make some paintings and making uh, design dresses for my Barbies and everything. So yeah, that is how I started, let's say, as a child.
I think you had a lot of different things that you tasted already then so
Hmm.
quickly. Did you?
Maybe, but it was all kind of the same theme, like everything about creativity and everything around the visuals, let's say, combined with some technology usage.
Yeah. You made a blog for yourself. Did you actually make it for yourself in HTML, or did you use some kind of
Uh,
team website or something back
no,
then?
it was just on some blog service, but you could go and adjust the theme of it, which required some HTML and some coding, let's say. And I used to Google like, okay, how to change the background picture, how to add this to my corners or anything. So I used to love playing with that as well. But it wasn't like a pure HTML and CSS. It was just adjusting it.
Did you also feel like those creations were a bit of uh, putting everything that you see on the internet in one page? Like every cool thing that you saw, you tried it for yourself. For me,
Um,
those first websites were also like a gathering of tutorials that I followed, and then I had crazy buttons and gradient backgrounds and like
yeah, yeah, yeah.
all those
I
weird
I
things.
I remember there was a lot of animation and GIFs you could put on your blogs and a lot of sparkly stuff and some quizzes and everything. It had everything. Just what you said, like everything cool you saw, you wanted to have it on your blog, on your website. So
Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Is it? Do you still have it, or do you have screenshots of it?
Oh no, I think oof, it's a long time ago, and I don't know if it's even out there. I don't know what was the correct name of it or anything. I just know I had some posts about my life there, and some other people commented, and it was like my blog, but it was just for fun.
Did yeah,
And when
yeah? Did it also have some traction? And were there some people following that blog?
I mean, it was more like follow for follow. Like if I commented on somebody's post, they would go back and commented on mine, and it wasn't like the real audience or creating anything valuable, so people would follow you. It was just like for fun.
Yeah, I can understand that. Uh, I feel like it's also a bit of the first step in social media for you then.
Yeah, 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 exactly. It was before Facebook and everything, so yeah. And do you remember the MSN chat and everything?
Yeah, yeah, I used it a
Yeah,
lot.
yeah,
Like
those were the times.
when you get back from school and the first thing you did was put on the PC
Yeah,
and check who's
yeah,
online, and everybody that you saw on school was already online.
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah, yeah. It was so cool.
yeah. So yeah, you had a lot of yeah tasting of design when you were early, and you said you did an IT study. Is did it also come from that, because it's a little bit more technical, I think?
hmm So when I was in high school, I thought I was going to be a psychologist because I really got interested in all kinds of psychology topics. And I thought, oh, after high school, I'm going to enroll into a psychology college. But it was really hard to get into it. It required a lot of effort to apply for it. And also my parents were against it because it's not so easy to find a job as a psychiatrist in our country. And now I'm actually glad that I didn't, because this topic is very interesting for me, but more as a hobby, and I couldn't imagine myself just solving other people's problems and listening to them every day. So I'm kind of glad that instead of that, I chose IT because um, it is a very prosperous profession. Like my parents also used to say, "Oh yeah, with IT you will get a job immediately," and not a lot of people were going to that college, so I knew, oh, it's going to be easy to get into this college. So that is why I chose it. And I'm glad I did now.
Yeah, I can understand. And do you feel like your parents influenced your decisions a lot in that
I
sense?
mean, when I was younger, yeah, definitely, but I was always kind of stubborn. So, but yeah, I think it's normal. I mean, they want the best for you, so it made sense to me. For example, if they wanted me to go to medicine school or anything in which I didn't have any interest, they couldn't made me do it. But this was like, okay, I had the support from them, and also it made sense to me. So
Yeah, I can understand. Yeah, and do they have a similar background in IT or something, or what did they
oh
do?
no, no, no. They're like quite older, so my father, he was a real estate agent, and my mother was working in a shop, so they don't have any kind of background
Ah,
at
okay.
that. But they just saw that this is an industry in interest. Sorry. This is the interest. I can say it.
Interesting
Industry.
industry.
um, yeah, this is something which guarantees a job in our country.
Yeah, and did you always know that you wanted to become something like a UX or UI designer when you started the IT study?
At first, I didn't even know that there was a profession like that. I thought that you had graphic designers and that you have web designers. So I always thought that I was going to be a web designer. So I used to learn a lot of HTML and CSS, but I didn't really enjoy the coding part. I always used to play with graphics, and we even had one class where we learned about Photoshop, Illustrator, Animate, Premiere, and that was my favorite class because it was so creative. But you just got the basics, and then if you're interested in it, you can explore more and expand your knowledge. But it wasn't after my internship, like on my fifth year, which was, by the way, last year. I had an internship and I went to a agency where they were specializing in design and branding. And I was chatting with my mentor, and she said, like, oh, why don't you try to create a visual identity for some fictional company and then create a website for them, like design it. And I was like, isn't this just for graphic designers, like for the students that go to graphic school? And she showed me her portfolio and everything, and she said, like, no, I'm an UI UX designer. And I was like, oh yeah, I heard about that, but we never talked about it in my college. Can you imagine? Like, we just, oh yeah, there are UI UX designers, but nobody knew what exactly that was. So it wasn't until last year when I really got into it, let's say, and started working on my knowledge in this field.
I feel like the term only recently got like a great explanation for it. In my time
Hmm.
when I went to college, it also wasn't actually a thing. You were a web designer, as you said, or a graphic designer. Um,
Yeah.
Everyone needed to learn certain code languages, and I feel like you can be a great UX designer without even knowing how to code. So
Yeah, exactly.
that changed a
Uh,
lot.
I mean, it's useful to know it just to know what are your limits, like what are the boundaries, and be aware of them when designing something, because if the developers cannot code it, then what's the point? But yeah, and it's a shame that, I don't know, we in Croatia, we don't have any college where they specifically teach you how to be an UI UX designer. So I also saw an opportunity here, because if you're not self-taught, um, there will be no other designers which will compete with you in this field, because you cannot go college and just have a diploma in this field. So
Yeah, that's also a great opportunity for you then in
yeah,
your country. That if you
yeah,
are able to stand out as a self-taught UX designer, then you're
yeah,
like you don't have a lot of competition then.
yeah, exactly. Like I was on a presentation of some company. It was at my college.
Helena? Yeah, we had a bit of a technical issue. The audio cut off a bit. We were talking about, like I said, that there was not a real profession as a UX designer when we started, and then you said something about your country that there are like no studies or colleges that teach that.
Hmm.
So I feel like you have a great opportunity for yourself if you're self-taught and you can yeah, show people your expertise in that.
Yeah, exactly. And I think if you're a graphic designer, you can expand to be an UI UX designer, and also coming from IT. So I think that my background is a plus for this as well. So
Yeah,
yeah,
I think so as well. I think that's also a bit that you see in the content that you make. You are really focused on UX design, but it's also really the technical side and how things are
yeah,
named, how you can use it exactly like some kind of design system that you use. So
yeah.
I think the content that you post on Instagram, it really resonates with how you actually studied and what your background is. So
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it was, I don't know if I have any projects in the future. I can go back and refer to my posts, like to see some of the technical stuff or something. And I wanted for somebody else to have these benefits as well. Like, I don't know, if you need to design a sign-up process, okay, I have a post where you can find out what are the best practices, what should you put, what you shouldn't put, and just to be some kind of a guidance for you in your thought process and your just creation process. So
so
that was my goal.
you said like is it a bit of the path that you chose? You want people to teach. You want people to learn that as well.
Yeah, I think it's good to share knowledge. Like, there are so much free resources out there that I just wanted to make a contribution as well. And also just for networking purposes, and who knows, maybe one day you can also get clients out of it, and it can just be an add to your CV or something. Like, I didn't really think about it that way when I started. I just wanted to help it to keep me motivated and to keep studying. And now, since my Instagram grew a bit and I met a lot of people on Instagram, I'm even chatting with one now. So yeah, there are a lot of opportunities, and who knows? I'm really glad that I started with my IG.
Yeah, when I started looking at your post, and like the first post started in October or something, October of last year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Were you still at the internship back then, or?
No, like I was finishing my master thesis at the time, and just to graduate, I graduated in December. And the topic of my thesis was UI UX design for a mobile app. And I was doing like the whole project from personas, user journey, like the whole process. And I made around 100 screens and the prototype and everything. And I was researching like what should be the size of the buttons, how should the grid look like, blah blah blah. And I also did this project to put it in my portfolio. So that is how the material design series started, because I was doing this project for Android and I had to study material design. And then I wanted to see what other things can I add to my portfolio, because I didn't have any clients, but I needed a portfolio. So I came across the UI Daily Challenge and I saw all these tasks and I thought, oh great, I'm going to do them. And then I started doing them, but I was like, oh wait, but uh, how should how should I make a landing page? Like, what are the best practices for it? And I didn't want to just create the visual for it, but also wanted to make it in a way that gives the best user experience. So that was at that time when I was finishing my master thesis to graduate.
Yeah, I just like a week ago, I had a bit of a conversation with my girlfriend about content to put out, and we also talked about the thesis I did, with which also involved UX design and a lot of research actually.
Mm-hmm.
Do you still put content out that from research that you made in with that thesis?
Um, Not really, but that's a good idea. Like creating personas and creating wireframes, for example. Yeah, I could reuse some of that knowledge because I have a whole notebook like with my notes, which I took when I was just doing this research. So yeah, this is a good idea. Thank you.
Yeah, I think yeah, we also said to each other like it's full of actual content if we just chop it up in little pieces, because you study for like 6 months on one certain subject and you have so much research, so much
Mm,
books and input and videos and everything that you can actually use to also teach others what you
yeah,
did. And the whole thesis is too big for anyone on Instagram to learn in like the 10 seconds that they scroll
yeah.
past your post. But if you can chop it up in little pieces, you can get a lot of content out of it, I think.
Exactly, yeah. And it's also a good reminder for yourself, or you can also expand some of that knowledge, some of that research you did.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
yeah.
I think some things to take away from that is that you can also look back on what you already did and see if you can
Mm-hmm.
improve on that or get little pieces out of it, because it's sad to lose it all and just focus on all the new things that you come across.
Yeah, exactly.
For instance, I had a research about the usage of icons, and
Mm-hmm.
the audience that was supposed to see the icons had I did an A/B test with really simplistic new icons that represented what the product was. For instance, a camera that looked really modern, and on the other side, I had an icon from a camera that looked like an 80s camera, with the big thing behind it, with the recording that you need to put in,
Mm-hmm.
to see if they recognize if it says what is an IP camera. That stands for a camera that transmits via the internet.
Mm-hmm.
And like most of the audience picked the right one, the 80s camera, like the old one.
Oh, wow.
And that made me realize like you can also think like, okay, I use the exact word. I use the modern webcam that is actually an IP camera, but people don't recognize it as a
Yeah.
camera, so they pick the other one.
Yeah. You see the importance of user testing in this
Yeah,
example.
yeah,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
that's what you can show to like the client that you have, who will always say no, but the left one is the IP camera because that is what we sell,
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
that's what's going to the customers. But then you can show them, well, the customer doesn't know what an IP camera is, so maybe you need to put out content so they know what it is, or you can stick to the one that's tested right now.
Yeah,
So that was a
exactly.
cool little insight that I had from the research that I did.
Yeah, that is exactly why some businesses are more successful than others because they test on their customers or on their users. So, yay,
Yeah.
UX research all the way.
Yeah, and do you find it you're a freelancer now, right?
Um, I'm currently I'm currently nothing. Let's say just like
In
that.
between things. But
Yeah, yeah.
you had did you have a lot of or a couple of freelance projects for yourself?
I had some like just fake projects, let's say, just to put in my portfolio. And other projects were just like some not so meaningful projects from Freelancer or Fiverr or 99 Designs, but it was
Okay.
just a way for me to kind of learn something and to get some money out of it. But it was more just uh, to get me started, let's say.
Yeah, okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
because I feel like UX research is really hard to sell to clients if you're like the only one doing it as a
Yeah.
freelancer or something. I think it's only valuable for like clients that get big budgets and really try to make something new out of a website or an app, or and
Yeah.
they hire like a big agency where they have
Yeah,
a whole
exactly.
design team with maybe 5 or 6 designers, with a graphic designer, a UX designer,
Yeah.
all those things.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of clients that hire freelancers, they just need some part of this process because they don't have a big enough budget to get the whole thing, let's say, or they will get the whole thing, but not a very good quality job if
Yeah,
they don't have a big budget. And if they have a big budget, then they will probably pick an agency. So
yeah,
yeah, that is kind of a problem, let's say, or discussion whether it's better to be a freelancer or to work in an agency.
yeah. Or maybe we can find a solution to implement it as a freelancer as well somehow. I
Yeah.
don't know the solution right now, but I think people are getting more and more creative, even in times like this, when uh,
Mm-hmm.
we need to cut costs and everyone needs to yeah, count their budget and all. But maybe we can, yeah, find some solution for like small budget clients to also create an UX based research design for something.
Yeah,
Uh,
I think we should spend some time. I mean, if the client is willing to, just spend some time on educating them, like why is it important, and show them some case studies which show how important that part of the research was and how much it increased the revenue of some other client. So maybe that would be a way to get it started.
yeah,
I don't know.
that's a good idea actually. A good way to start. I think if they know that their customers' opinion really matters,
Yeah.
the and if they are able to do some kind of research for themselves, for instance, like an interview every or some questions through email every year or every quarter of a year or something, that could be really
Yeah.
valuable to us as designers to create something that really works for your clients, for your customers. I
Yeah.
mean,
And it doesn't even have to be expensive or complicated. There are so many ways to get some feedback from the clients' users nowadays. So you can, like, the most basic one would be just to create some Google form and send it out, and then you have the whole data. You don't have to analyze everything, like everything is shown to you. So that would be a cheap and an effective way, in my
yeah,
opinion.
yeah, great advice.
Yeah, thank you.
Uh, um, you are in your posts, you had a lot of posts about material design.
Mm-hmm.
What fascinates you about material design?
Um, I don't think that it has to do something with the fascination. It's just I started doing it because, as I said, of this thesis, so I had to research it a lot because I was doing the design for Android, and I was quite surprised how much information they have on their sites. Like,
That
they get
component
really,
page.
yeah.
That's
Um, and I don't know, I just started doing it, and there's a lot of topics to cover, and when I run out of the topics for the material design, I'll probably switch to iOS. So, yeah.
you get a ton
But
of
for,
yeah, content and
yeah, yeah, yeah. There's always something to research and create content about.
yeah, I know when I think they announced it, like when did they announce it? Like 2014 or something?
Yeah, something about that, I think.
Yeah.
I was I was watching some YouTube video where those Google designers, like how they created the material design, and they were really like cutting out papers and seeing how the shadows naturally fall, and how should we design an app that that resembles like the real appliances, the real buttons and so on, and that is why they created this material design guidelines. So it was interesting to watch that.
Yeah, uh, indeed. For the listeners that don't know, material design is, as Helena said, it's like a design system that Google invented for themselves for all their
Mhm.
apps and programs that they make, and it's based on the real world and how real things act when you use them. For instance, like pushing a button, the shadows that the light creates, what day in and out, the weight that things have when they're stacked on each other, and how that's implemented in an online world. And it's really fascinating to look. You can see it on, I think it's material.io.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
there you can see all the components, and I think the videos are also on there. I can share them in the notes actually to watch them, because they're really fascinating. As you said, they were cutting out like papers and stacking them
Yeah,
onto each other and taking pictures of how does the shadow look when there are two items on top of each other, and
yeah,
how would
yeah,
they switch, and like there are a ton of things that they use for that. So that's really interesting. And I also feel like designs that use material design as a system for themselves, they show really natural actually. They feel really
yeah,
natural when you use them.
yeah, yeah. What is the name? Like when something is like intuitive.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Um, but I don't know. I'm not. I didn't really research the iOS design, so I'll have to see what are the differences. And because I always used to use Android, I never used an iPhone, for instance.
same for me.
So
So
yeah, so Android crew.
yeah, I
Um,
recently got an iPad, and it's really uh, I think it's really intuitive, but I need to know like all the gestures, and I feel like I'm really stuck at the moment, but I think that will
mm,
improve when using it more. So
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I'm interested to find out more about the iOS side as well.
yeah, I don't know if they have a real design system for them for the usage of iOS apps actually.
I think they also have some guidelines, but I don't know if it is as detailed as material design, but I know they have some guidelines,
Mm.
at least for developers. So I think they have it for designers as well.
For like the material design, one of the things that I really found super intuitive are the way the input fields work. When you
Hmm.
like type something, that the text moves to the top, and it gets an active color around it, and then you can type, and the what is it called, like the label, it's not a placeholder but the label that sticks to the top, and the text goes underneath the label. So I feel that's really intuitive, and it
Yeah,
saves also space for like mobile usage.
yeah. I think they did a really great job with it. Like you don't have to use all the suggestions that they say, but if you use them, you will sure do a great job in designing something. But also, of course, you can do some things on your own.
Yeah,
It allows you this freedom as well.
yeah, I feel like the way that the input fields work, we used to do that like for 10 websites in a row, and then it would literally feel like you did the same website 10 times. That's the only thing that I have with it. It's a great source of design usage, but if you use it for like everything that you make, then everything kind of feels the same.
Yeah, yeah. It feels as if you are just copy pasting everything.
Yeah, but never change your winning team. So um, it's also one of the ways that you know that it will work.
Yeah, yeah. Like if you want to play it safe, just use it as it is described. So
Yeah.
I
uh,
recommend it for beginners. Just learn the material design and use it as it's intended to use it, and then when you get good at it, then you can play a little bit with it.
yeah, and if you want,
Eh,
if you are a beginner, then you can also start with the post of at ux.effects. And then you can see a little bit about why everything is named something, and how you can use it for yourself. So that's also a great
Thank,
tip.
thank you for the promotion. Thank you.
um, so, uh, how many posts do you have right now? I haven't checked it. Like around 40 or 50 or something.
Ah, no, no, no.
More?
It's just 30.
Just 30. Okay.
Yeah, I also thought there will be more of them by
Yeah.
now, but yeah, yesterday was the 30th one.
Okay. Well, you gained around 800 followers already, so that's really quickly for the time that you started. Um, what advice would you give for someone starting out on Instagram right this second with like 0 followers?
Um, I would just say create a content that people can really benefit from it and don't just copy paste what everyone else is doing because you will never stand out that way, and don't don't spam other people. Like I see a lot of people just commenting on some posts and other people's posts, like just oh great, oh great post, but they don't keep the conversation going. Like they don't show real interest. They just um do it for the engagement purposes, and that could work for a while, but um, that won't get you far. So just be consistent, learn how to use hashtags properly, respond to your DMs, respond to your comments, engage with other people, leave purposeful comments on other people's posts, and just be as active as you can, but don't spam people with too much stories or something. Like nobody wants to see a bunch of stories that don't have any value. I think, at least for me, I feel that way.
I think you crammed like 20 tips in 40 seconds, so that's a great, great answer. I, I
Thanks.
think we have to chop that up in like 10 pieces of content because that are great tips for someone starting out. I I
Thanks.
especially like the part where you said, I don't know if you get that a lot. I don't get it a lot, but people that just comment, nice, okay, great post.
Um, I, I did get some of them, but I see it more on the big profiles, like I don't know, UI Helen, I really like her, or UX Mars, or Trupti. Like some people just comment great, nice, or they comment something that is totally not related. Like you can see that they didn't even read the post, but they're just here just to leave a comment to get your attention.
Yeah, to
I
show
don't
that
see what's the
avatar.
point. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, do you know like how Behance works? I freaking hate every commenter over there. It's always like, oh, nice post. Can you check mine? Can you check my
Yeah, yeah,
profile?
yeah.
It's
Yeah, exactly. Great work.
yeah,
Uh, can you give me a feedback about my work as well?
like nobody got time for that.
Yeah. I mean, I have a profile on Behance, but I'm not so active. Like some projects, there are I mostly have like personal projects there because I cannot show some real projects, let's say. Uh, but I don't even have a Dribble. Do you have a Dribble?
I have Dribble, but I never use it actually.
Yeah.
I feel like Dribble is more of just a highlight thing for illustrators or something.
Mhm.
I don't get a lot of inspiration or value from it because it feels so tiny. It's like they make like one button and they make it super fancy and and all, and I think, yeah, how can I use that?
Yeah. It's more the UI, but
Yeah.
it's not good UX part.
No, I feel like Behance actually has more UX related stuff that can really inspire you in how you can handle like certain pages, or for
Yeah.
instance, with the agency where I work at, they we had a lot of projects in a short time with real estate, and I wanted to know like what could work, and we also looked at how others did it in the field, like in the Netherlands. But it's also great to look
Mm-hmm.
on Behance because real estate is a pretty large, um, yeah, couple of posts of people that did high end stuff for high end clients, and that was
Mm-hmm.
really valuable in getting inspiration and how they solved like the UX problems that they have.
Yeah. That's a great source of inspiration. I also like to go on Pinterest, although it's just the visual part, but you can find a lot of inspiration there as well.
What
Do,
can you explain it a bit more? How do you use Pinterest for UX design or
for
design?
example, the last design I did was for a food magazine. So for the job application, I was telling you in the DM.
Yeah,
So I got the brief and I got a couple of websites that the client liked, but they looked so outdated. So I was just searching for some inspiration, like how to design a recipe page, or how to present the ingredients of the recipe. And I just typed like recipe website in Pinterest, and you get a ton of pictures of nice designs. So that is how I got inspired.
okay, great tip. I only use like Pinterest for ideas for in the house or something, but um,
Mm-hmm. I used to use it like that as well, but now when I discovered that there are also some nice design works there as well, I use it for that also.
that's a great tip. I'll look into it.
And great.
So I wanted to ask you, um, what is your favorite way to learn new things?
um, I love reading books, design books. Um, if I can, I get the real book. If I can't, then I just will go through PDFs and highlight what is the most important. Um, and also, I really love online classes, but I make sure to always take notes, like real notes, like I'm in school in my notebook, because I think that is how I learn the most. And also reading articles, going through some posts, and I save a lot of posts, and then let's say once in every 2 weeks, I go through them and see um, on which topic I want to expand my knowledge. So then I Google it, watch some YouTube videos, and so on. I think for me, the best way I learn is by taking notes, like creating my notes, like the knowledge that I receive, I kind of transform it in a way that is acceptable for me. And I think that's the best way I learn personally.
Yeah, I actually do the same. I feel like if I don't write it down, it won't stick for me somehow.
Yeah.
And do you also do it on paper?
Yeah, on paper, like I have a special notebook where like every time I start learning something, I put the title and the date and I just take notes. I try to organize it somehow, and then after a while, if I need to look it up. I don't have to watch the course again or anything. Like I have the most important things on in my notes, so it's quite useful. And also I can make posts out of them.
Yeah, I think it's a real source of inspiration for new content as well, if you
Yeah,
stick to it.
yeah. And every time you write something down, it kind of sinks in deeper, don't you think?
Yeah, yeah, I feel the same.
Yeah, yeah.
So, Helena, do you have any more design books that you can recommend to people?
I think that the design of everyday things by Dan Norman is a must. It's not strictly design related, but it shows you how we use design in our everyday lives. For example, this book created the term the Norman door. You know, when you came up to a door and you don't know whether to push it or to pull it. So this really shows you how important it is to think about human behavior and defining users when creating any product, and you can implement it into designing digital projects as well. And then I would recommend the book Don't Make Me Think. It is also an older book, but it also shows you how the users think, how do they interact with digital products, and it is filled with examples, so it's really easy to read it and enjoyable. So definitely these two ones.
Okay, very cool tips. Did you also read Don Norman's book in college, or?
No, I just read it like 2 months ago, I think. And a pro tip, you also have it as an audiobook on YouTube. So if you don't want to read it, you can listen to it. But I recommend both. Like I love hearing the audio and reading the book. It's like double pleasure, let's say. So yeah, you can always find a way to read something if you want. There's a lot of resources on the internet. So no excuses for not reading.
Yeah, Don Norman's book is also quite old book, like from 1984 or something, or
Yeah.
1990s, or I don't recall the exact publishing date, but I remember that that was like the number one book that we needed to read in college. It was like almost every class, not in the first year, but like second year to last year, to the last year there, always recommended read that book,
Mhm.
use the things that he says. And like I don't remember a lot of things from the book, so I probably need to reread it again. But when you said the doors, I immediately was thinking to myself like, the book is about door handles. The book is about door
Yeah,
handles.
yeah, yeah.
That's why you said the normal door. So, uh, and the other
Yeah.
book I have not read that one, so I'll write it down and see if I can get a copy from that or something.
Mhm. I will also talk it talk to you about that,
Okay,
the
great.
DM, and I can recommend some other ones as well. So,
Oh, very nice.
and yeah, I just made a highlight today with some books I recommend reading, and I will be adding into the highlight, so you can check it on my Instagram account if anyone's interested in knowing more books. So you can check that out.
Yeah, I also have a couple of recommendations that I read um, recently. So maybe we can make a shared story or post or something
Oh
to
yeah, that's a great idea.
yeah, because I recently read The War of Art. I don't know if
Mm-hmm.
you've read that one, but
No,
it's
it's not familiar.
it's about how creatives get stuck in not doing anything,
Mm-hmm.
not getting anything out in the world, and yeah, he puts a great perspective in just creating something that you really like and finding the true passion for yourself as an artist. So that one was a great way for me to actually, yeah, even start this podcast.
Oh,
So
so
it,
it sounds very interesting.
yeah, it's very interesting actually. So I wouldn't recommend it if you're really creative and you're already putting out all the stuff. But if you feel like you have a lot of times where you're stuck, then you
Mm-hmm.
can definitely read it and give some perspective for yourself. So uh, that's a great one. And I also read, it's called 100 Things That Every Designer Should Know About People.
Oh,
That book is
I s-
from a psychologist, and she studied human behavior, and it's really interesting for designers. It's yeah, she explains why people can only remember like four things. You know that little game where you have to tell something, add one thing, and then set it to say it to the next person, and like after a couple of things, they don't remember what the first one said.
yeah, 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 yeah.
That little game, she explains like how does that work in your brain, and how can you implement that in like designs and such. So that's really cool. It's quick, actionable, and you can. It's also a ton of content for people that are interested in diving deeper in like one of the things. The one thing that stuck with me is the remembering thing. So if you make a step where people need to remember a lot of stuff when they go to the next step, that will not work. You need to show
Yeah.
them like little handles, little reminders of is this what you put in like in step one, and all those kind of implementations for your design. So
Yeah, this I think I saw it in some post as a recommendation, and I really thought of reading it, and thank you for the reminder because it really sounds very interesting. Like combining the psychology and design, it sounds perfect.
yeah,
Thank you.
yeah, and yeah, we'll talk about a bit more about doing some kind of post on that because I really enjoy
Mm-hmm.
reading books on design, and from what I hear, you do it a lot for yourself as well. So
Yeah,
great to hear.
great.
Yeah, I wanted to ask one more thing, and that's what is a thing that you like to explore more of?
You mean like in everyday life or in design in general?
Whatever fits your answer.
Hmm. I really like traveling, which now it's not an option, but yeah, just exploring other cultures, let's say, by traveling, and that is one of my main focuses in life, other than designing, of course.
And what is the first thing you're going to visit when this is all over?
Um, I think that first I will go to Italy because I used to go there like every 2 months or so just to go there for pizza or something because I live very close to it. It's like 1 hour away. So I think definitely I will go there just just to just to remind myself of how it is to go somewhere outside of your country. But this year I would really like to visit Moscow. Um, so yeah, we'll see how it goes. Hopefully I will go
Yeah,
somewhere new this year if this situation gets better.
I hope so too.
I really hope. Yeah, let's be optimistic about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that were the questions that I wanted to ask you. So, Helena, I want to thank you for being a guest on this show. I think it
Yep.
was really insightful, and you gave the listeners a lot of tips to implement. And yeah, I think it was really helpful.
Thank you so much for inviting me. It's really an honor. And I really enjoyed this conversation, and I hope that somebody will get something out of it. And yeah, thank you. And I hope to chat with you in the future as well. And I'm looking forward to listen to your other podcasts as well. And yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to end this conversation with one question for the audience, and I'd like to give you the honor of asking them. So, Helena, do you have one question for the audience?
Oh, hmm. My biggest question for the audience would be they should answer this first to themselves. Do they really do do they follow their passion, let's say? And how are they living their life by following their passion? Like, do they enjoy in doing things they do, or they just do it for the paycheck? And how could they change it to live more enjoyable life?
I think that's a great question, and that's literally one of the reasons why I started this podcast to get people on that follow their passion. And I also want to know from the people that are listening if they are following their passion. So that's
Yeah,
a great question.
yeah, and I think maybe it sounds abstract, like what is my passion? Like many people think that is something huge, but just do you enjoy when you're doing something? Do you do it just because you enjoy it, or you just want to get it over with? You know, like passion isn't some big abstract word, but just follow what you enjoy doing, what
Passion can
feels right to
also
you.
be for like 1 year or something you knew you want to try out. It's
Yeah,
not always the path that you really want to take. But
yeah,
hmm. Okay, well, Helena, thank you for the question. Thank you for being a guest on the show again. And yeah, we'll talk with each
welcome.
other fairly quickly, I think.
Yeah, thank you,
Okay, thank
thank you,
you.
and bye.
Yeah, yeah, goodbye. That's about it. Thank you so much for listening to this show. I hope it was enjoyable to you and you also got some valuable insights. It would mean the world to me if you could let me know what you thought about this episode. You can find me on Instagram at ruud.exploor, ruud.exploor, or on Twitter, ruud_explore. So let's have a chat and hopefully see you next time. Bye bye.